As digital marketing and tech tools take center stage, many businesses are wondering what's really working. Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, paid or unpaid. What is really making the register ring? So today we have Suzanne McDonald of Newport Interactive Marketing in conversation with Jay Murphy, the CEO of Trionia, as he walks through configuring Google Analytics to guide your marketing decisions and generating sales. So with that, I'll pass it over to you, Suzanne. Thank you so much for leading it.
Oh, thank you. This is so fun to do this with you guys, and I'm really happy to partake, and it's great to connect with Venture Cafe and District Hall. It's such a great thing for Providence. I was just sending out a tweet today, and I was like, wow, look at all these venture cafes all over the world. There's Sydney, there's Warsaw, and I was like, and we have this in Providence. Very cool. Yeah, welcome everybody. So this is also the Interactive Marketing Insights podcast, and they're welcome to check it out. It's on iTunes finally, and there's a whole bunch of, I think I have a couple years worth of monthly, so it's about a couple dozen podcasts. But we also, Newport Interactive Marketing, we have Jay coming back on Thursday at 4:30 to do a deeper dive into the more technical elements. Today's talk is going to be more along the lines of how do you position your questions so that Google understands them, and what are some good business questions to be asking that analytics can help answer. Because I think one of the biggest challenges is, I want the register to ring, but how does Google Analytics get me there? And Jay has tons of experience, both training, he's trained all over the country, all over the world, companies and individuals in Google Analytics, and is really great at putting Google Analytics into English. And Jay, I think, when was the first time we had you speak at NIM? It was eons ago, right? We're in 10 years now.
Yeah, it was probably one of the first years, because I gave the PHP meeting talk in 2006, 2005, something like that. So yeah, it was a little while ago.
Yeah, but and you've spent a lot of time doing training. How many training sessions in Google Analytics do you think you've given?
I honestly don't know. I was, for several years, I was training around the country, and probably twice a month, with just both independently and with an organization called Cardinal Path. And so I've been teaching Google Analytics to, it's got to be thousands of people and hundreds of classes. So yeah, and what's been fun about it is learning both, different questions. So it makes you better at Google Analytics. So you've got to know all the answers from different ranges of organizations. So we've worked with, Fortune 500 to startups. And in each class, we had groups of people from both types of organizations, from all different types of organizations. And so, yeah, it's been really, really fun to both, learn Google Analytics and help other people learn it. And then there are other tools that are you can build out with. So, Google Analytics integrates with Google Ads. So paid search campaigns are much more effective when you're integrating it with Google Analytics. The Google Search Console is a free tool that tells you what search keywords you're showing up for, and if you've got any problems with your unpaid search, your organic search. And then there's a visualization tool called Data Studio that's available as well. So for free, Google is providing this whole range of tools that you can use to understand your marketing a lot better.
And you're able to tie in social media channels. What are some really, I guess, easy ways that you can loop everything together, and then you look? Would you say that Google Analytics is the place to look once you have it all tied in?
I think it's a great place to look, yes. And there are, so you get the free integrations with Google Search Console and Google Ads. And then when you're looking at other marketing channels like social media, there's a technique called UTM tagging. And the way that that works is you can provide additional information to Google Analytics about the campaign name, the source of the traffic. Is it Instagram, Twitter, Facebook? The type of traffic. Is it an organic placement? Have you just, posted something, or are you paying for it? Is it something that you're spending money on? So you can differentiate that with a variable called the medium in a UTM tag. And then you can even differentiate different parts of that. So say you're sending out an email and you've got a title with a link in it. You can indicate that that's the link click if someone comes to your website that way. Or you might have, more information or full story here types of links. And you can add that with what's called the content part of the UTM tags. So learning UTM tagging is a really important technique for getting that information into Google Analytics as well. And then you'll be able to look at all your channels together and see which ones are more effective, which ones are bringing people to your website, and where they're traveling. What parts of the website are they going to?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And how difficult is it to, I guess, learn the ropes on UTM?
It's really it's not tricky to do. There are some good articles that are out on the web. There's actually a blog article I'm in the middle of writing right now that'll probably release in a week or two. And there's what's called a tagging tool that's available from Google, so you can build out your UTM tags there as well. And
UTM is, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Universal Tag Manager?
It's a really old name. So Google Analytics was called Urchin 12 years ago or so. And so it stands for Urchin Tag Module. And it actually it's the original name. And so that's where the U comes from in there. But they changed Urchin to Google Analytics a while ago. So that's like,
all right.
That's a trivia question now. What is Urchin? So
we'll send you a free virtual coffee if you can answer the question.
Right.
Yeah, Amy, maybe you should put that up on your board, on your trivia board. And so, sorry, I interrupted, and you were saying that UTM.
So right. So there's a tool, a Google Analytics tool, and then if you do it a lot, there's actually a Google Sheet that I use that I'd be willing to share with people on the call, where when you're building a lot of, like, say, an extensive campaign, it's a lot easier to build them in a Google Sheet so that you can just, enter in the campaign name and the source of the traffic and the type of link it is right within a sheet. And then that'll build out this URL string that will look complicated, but really once you know how it fits together, it's pretty straightforward. And then Google Analytics will recognize that link when it gets to your website, and we'll be able to tell, oh, this is someone coming from the tweet that we just posted, or this is someone coming from a banner ad that we placed on a website that we're a partner with. And so you can tell where all that traffic is coming from.
And I would say that, over the years since I've become familiar with Google Analytics, it's actually gotten so much easier. So even if you don't want to do anything with UTM, you can, you're able to tie some things together. Like, so for example, if you use MailChimp will ask for you to label your campaign so that you can track it in, and they just sync up. There's some pretty easy integrations. And then the other piece too is everybody should, if you're launching a website, your web developer should be able to set up Google Analytics for you, as long as you have a Gmail address or have things changed.
No, that's 100% right. It's both. A lot of tools like MailChimp, when you're giving it that campaign name, it's behind the scenes creating that UTM tag. So you don't
Oh,
even
okay.
need to do it. It will just
Mm-hmm.
do it for you. And a lot of email tools will do that. There's also a tool called Funnelytics that some of our clients use. And Funnelytics will actually let you, with a visual tool, kind of design your campaign. And behind the scenes, it will build the UTM tags for you as well. So that's a neat little tool to use as well. Some people like having that control and going the Google Sheet way, but Funnelytics is a nice way of just letting you, with a drag and drop tool, build your campaigns and give you the UTM codes. And then, shoot, I forgot the other part of the question that you asked me.
Oh, we were talking about developers, like, if you're
Yeah.
launching a new website, the developers should be able to set you up as long
Yeah.
as you have a Gmail.
Yeah, it's super easy to create a Google Analytics account. There's like a ton of videos that show you. Essentially, you just need to grab a little snippet of JavaScript code. So you can go into Google Analytics, sign up with the Gmail account, or you can use your own email to create a Google account as well if you want. And then when you sign up, you'll get this little snippet of code and you can put it on your website. Or if you've got a WordPress or Drupal or, pardon me, any type of content management system, there are plugins that will make it super simple to install Google Analytics. You'll just use what's called a tracking code or a UA code and just put that into the plugins and that will work right away. And then, so that'll track all your pages. The UTM tags will be tracked automatically. But if you want to get the next level of capability with Google Analytics, I'd recommend you use a tool called Google Tag Manager. And what Google Tag Manager will allow you to do is track even more. So Google Analytics by default will track every page view. So every page you have on your website, you'll know, how people got there and where they navigated to. But with Google Tag Manager, it's really simple to track other things that might be of use to you. And one of the biggest ones is being able to track forms, like when people fill in a lead form or when somebody makes a purchase. Google Tag Manager makes it a lot easier to set that up by it basically figures out when a person has completed a form or completed a purchase. And then it will trigger a tag. It will send information back to Google Analytics about that. So it might be really simple, like just say this is a form submit, and it's our webinar sign up. Or it might be more complicated and say somebody has purchased this product and they paid this much for shipping and tax, and it's a blue large t-shirt and all kinds of useful information that you can tell. So Google Tag Manager is definitely, if I'm working with a client, I would recommend you start with Google Tag Manager to set up Google Analytics. Super simple to set it up the first time, and then you can extend it as well and get more information.
Yeah, I just wanted to pause and see if anybody has any questions,
Sure.
or if there's specific areas that we want to focus on. What's great about doing this partnership with Venture Cafe is to have a lot of different perspectives, and I'm always interested in making sure that we're answering the questions that real businesses have in a way that they can actually apply it in what I like to call actionable insights. So yeah, so pop in if you have questions. And one interesting thing I think is, let's say, for example, you send out a MailChimp campaign, like an email campaign, right? And then you can actually look and see, okay, so someone went to a specific page, right, which you would consider maybe a landing page, and then they fell off, or then they looked at something else, or these are all really important tools to see what's working and what's not. And I think you can also use Google Tag Manager. Let's say you're offering some type of coupon in your email, right? Can you talk a little bit about setting up that process of sending out an email? Are people using the coupon code? Are there ways to track that using Google Analytics?
Yes, yeah. And so what you'd want to do is, and this is what we'll be talking about on Thursday in some more detail. There's kind of like two parts of it. The bigger part is, what do we need to measure in Google Analytics? And on Thursday, I'm going to talk about how to tie that to your organization's strategy, and even help with tools on how to build a strategy so that you can break it down. And then every campaign is essentially just a snapshot of that. It's a microcosm of your strategy. Why are we doing this email campaign? What are the goals that we want to see, and what do we need to measure? And so with a campaign that's got a coupon code, the perfect thing about knowing that is, all right, we're using MailChimp, and we know that it's got the UTM tracking built in, so we don't have to worry about that, except for we want to make sure we will be able to tell, what campaign it is and what coupon that is downstream. And then on the website side of things, you'll build a landing page, you'll present that offer, all the really important content information and service information or product information that you'll need. And then inside the form or wherever you're accepting that coupon, you want to make sure that you're sending that data back to Google Analytics. And that's where a tool like Google Tag Manager is helpful. You can store that as what's called a custom dimension, for example. So you can extend Google Analytics and store that information. So you do that work up front, and it may sound like it's a lot. It's actually not. It's really, once you get into the cycle of doing this, it's really straightforward. And each campaign, you just check, check, check. We've done all of that. Yes, we can record the coupon. And then when you start running the campaign, that's when it's really powerful. So you send out the email. You can look in Google Analytics right in real time and see if people are responding to the email, who's coming to the website. And then you can look into different reports, the event reports, the goal reports in Google Analytics, and you can see how many people have responded to your offer and how many people have used that coupon code. And then you learn how effective that's been, and you can take that to your next campaign. So it's really straightforward setting up that type of a process, and it's really powerful. It makes you smarter and smarter about what your customers really appreciate, and so how you can get even better for each campaign as you go forward.
And what are some other common goals that might be helpful or that Google Analytics could help with? That, when you work with clients, what are some of the things that they are looking at? And I'm particularly interested in, not 50 steps, but is fairly obvious how they connect and how you can set that up.
Yeah. Well, when say you're releasing a new product and you want to, maybe you've got a free trial or a demo or a webinar, you want to record how many people are responding to those offers. And so that form tracking that we talked about before would be really useful, so that you can see who's signed up for a demo. But then the other side of it is there might be other tools that they're communicating with. So say they're using chat to reach out to you. You can record who's responding to chat or who's clicking on their cell phone to call you directly. You can track when phone calls have been clicked. So those are a few different types of goals for that type of a campaign. You might have an education campaign where you really want people to learn some information. So you might be tracking the content and you want to see who's actually read an article. So say you've got a new blog post and you want to see who's started the blog post, and then you can actually track who scrolled down to the finish, the completion of the blog post. So that's another type of goal, scroll tracking. And with blog types of websites, content marketing, we really like scroll tracking because we can tell, what people are really reading versus what they're just kind of looking at. And we even measure the time, so you can tell who's kind of skimming through the headlines versus someone who's actually taken the time to read. And the same is true with videos. So you might spend a lot of money on building a really impressive video that you want people to learn about your products or your services or to educate people. And so we can track, who's watched a video, and there are a ton of different players. So YouTube is built right into Google Analytics and Google Tag Manager for tracking, but almost every player that's out there has a way of tracking who's watched your videos, so you can tell who's really consumed your content. So those are just a few types of goals that people do want to track. There's a ton more. Probably every client that I've worked with has had some kind of neat things that they want to understand about their users.
Yeah, and I would say for an organization that's more recently moving into digital direction, the click to call, right, buttons on your website, those are some basic things that should be tracked automatically, right? Like if
Right.
you need help, ask whoever launched your website to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But click to call, click to email, having your phone number, one best practice is to have your phone number in the header with a click to call, make it look like a button. So just some, I'm always looking for ways and ideas that if you have one quick hit that that would potentially make a big difference.
Yeah.
Also to make sure you have your Google My Business page too, which Mark talked about in the tips last month. So Avi, you posted a question. Do you want to ask live?
It's something I've always wondered about, because when you are tracking, time spent on your website and different pages, I wonder, is Google able to differentiate when there's just an idle page? Because I know I'm also one of those people that at times can have 20 tabs up.
Yeah. There are some techniques. It's not 100% accurate, but there are timers that you can run in the background, and Google Tag Manager, Google Analytics together can tell whether it's an active tab or not. So there are ways to do that. So yeah, that's a great question, because yeah, I have like 100 tabs by the end of the day. I'm like, how did this happen? So yeah, you can't tell who's really on there versus who's not. And some of that, like the scroll tracking and video tracking, help you with that too. So you can see who's really engaging with your content, and tracking clicks, navigation, slideshows, all of those are really useful for really seeing who's engaged with your website, who's really looking at it at that point in time. So yeah, cool question. Are there other questions people have? It can be specific because it probably will be useful for everyone.
What do you think is a reasonable, do you know what the metrics look like for reading a blog post or video engagement? Like what's good versus bad? Do you have a handle on that? It's kind of specific.
Those are always tricky because they really vary by the type of video or the type of blog post. And it's actually one of the things we'll talk about on Thursday is with KPIs, how do you set your targets? So, I always joke, that the conversion rate for flowers, just before Valentine's Day is pretty awesome, but not as good the rest of the year. And so, you don't want to compare yourself with that kind of traffic, or like gift cards just before the holidays are crazy. You'll see the rates that you'll have to pay for gift cards spike to ridiculous numbers. So what you want to do is look at it's basically like if you're doing anything, you want to measure your performance based on how well your organization has done in the past, how well your website has done in the past, and then improve from there. And that's where Google Analytics really is perfect for that. So your KPIs, your targets that you're going to want to use, like let's say, because even a small improvement in conversion rate on your website can make a huge difference in how well your business does that year or that quarter. So by looking at conversion rates and thinking about button clicks for contact us, or changes to the content, changes to images, changes to the flow of your website can make really huge improvements in revenue, the bottom line. And so so I'd look at, and conversion rate, and if you don't know what it is the percentage of people that come to your website and then become either leads or paying customers. That's typically what we call conversion rate. And I like to use conversion rate as a metric with a target for improving it, because then you can look at each channel independently and see, is Twitter bringing in a different group than email versus Facebook or Instagram, and how well are those different channels performing in terms of converting people to leads or to customers. And then there are other techniques that we use a lot. So you've got those baselines, those targets, and then you want to improve on those. So how do you know what's making a difference? And that's doing testing, using different variations of your ads or different variations of your landing page or your forms, so that you continue to improve.
Yeah, that's why everybody gets so wound up about buttons. Do you have a take on the color of buttons and size and all that? What have you found works? It depends.
Does, yeah. You do. Again, it depends. But the beauty of testing is that you really can tell the difference. And so one of the very consistent things is a button that stands out is going to be clicked more. And so like a click to call or free demo or those types of links, you want to make sure that it pops, that it's clear, clear call to actions. Simple things like the image, well, not so simple, the images on a landing page can make a huge difference in conversion rate. So you want to think about an image that really presents your services, your products well, so that it really grabs people when they get there, and they'll respond more. And I didn't mention it before, but there are testing tools. Google's got a free tool. Again, I always sound like the Google salesman, like they need help selling things. But the Google Optimize is another free tool. And there are other great tools. Optimizely is out there. There are a bunch of other tools. So you can build a landing page, and with a very simple WYSIWYG, just what you see is what you get type of editor. You can change the button colors, you can change the content, you can change the images, and then see which version works better, and then continue to improve. Just like we talked about with the email, once you know how well you're doing. So now, maybe last year, 0.2% conversion rate was great, and now you're at 0.3, and you can't imagine having a 0.2. And sounds like really small changes, because they are, but they make big differences, really big differences over time.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too, because one thing I wanted to mention is, if you're not familiar with Google Analytics, let's say you are selling flowers for Valentine's Day. Mm-hmm. Well, what you want to do is you can compare last Valentine's Day to the one prior, right? Mm-hmm. And see where things have improved. Maybe you have specific campaigns that were more successful than not. Maybe you want to revive a campaign. And then also, if you're interested in landing pages and conversion optimization, that's a whole genre. Actually, we had a talk quite a number of years ago where Ann Holland from Which Test One, which I'm not even sure if they even exist anymore, but she came and did a whole talk on that, and it was super fascinating.
Yeah.
Also super interesting to see how a lot of people who are experts in digital marketing will guess incorrectly. Mm-hmm. And little things like if you have a picture on the page that you want your people to be looking at your button, like that's one of the best practices that you would never even think of, right? And so there's so many, and it comes down to behavioral psychology, right, and how our brains actually work to make that. And there's a lot of gamification elements to it. It's to me, it's super fascinating. But the real answer is it depends, because it's specific to you and to your audiences.
Exactly. But the part you just said about like how many people guess wrong, I see that every day, just like you do. And so having a tool where you can test it and try it is so much fun, because you do really learn, you learn things that you wouldn't know otherwise. That's part of what's fun about this whole space, is that it changes so fast. You're learning something new literally every day, and it's learning about your customers too, which is critical. You need to know what they want, what's important to them. So yeah, so it's fun. That part is really cool, setting up a test and then saying, oh wow, that's not what I expected, but now I know something new. So yeah.
Should we use an orange or a green button? Should the button change
Right.
colors based on the time of year? And
Yeah.
and like those are things that you can, Google will let you know, like, okay, this performed better than that. And like you said, depending on what you're selling and what the cost of the sale is,
Yep.
it'll help you narrow that in micro elements over time can make a big difference.
Right, exactly. And the depends part is what's interesting too. So like with video, I initially thought short video is always the way to go. And most of the time that's right. But then when you're talking about, like, say, a really high impact purchase, like higher education or something like that, longer videos that go into more detail and show more information can be useful. And so you think about what's the what's the customer's mindset, like what do they need to know to really make a decision here. And so sometimes boom boom boom, just like a super quick video that hits on the high points will win. But then if people are making a really long-term important decision, then maybe you do want a real story, you need a story always, but a longer story, something that goes into more detail, that spends more time, that answers deeper questions than you can do in a 20-second video. So that's been fascinating, actually, looking at how video lengths go. So for most clients, for most people, boom, your video is too long right now, I can tell you, but for some people, you can spend that time, you can take that time to, so think about what your customer, what do they need to know to make a decision. And yeah, so it's really fun.
What do you consider what's considered a long video in this goldfish era?
Literally 20 seconds is too long sometimes. So like for a simple, like a quick product video, you need to be like 10-15 seconds, just like boom, here's what you need to know, and then you're done. But
well, and you kind of want them to find out more, right?
Right, that's true too. And you do need other, yeah. You're basically like catching them, like here's the cool stuff that this product does, or here's how it solves your problem. If you answer that question in just a few seconds, and then you're right, and then they make the decision based on either looking, a lot of times reviews, looking at other sources. There are a lot that come into play, but yeah, it's fun to learn that.
Good. Yeah. Any other questions? Let me just check the chat here. Yes.
I'm curious, how many people have goals set up on your Google Analytics today?
I do. Just
raise of hands, or well, we're not on video, but I wish I could. So I talked about UTM tagging up front. Okay, yeah. When I look at most people's websites to try and help them, I'll see that their goals aren't set up correctly, or that they're not working, or that they're mismatched. Like their Google Ads conversions will be different from Facebook, will be different from from Google Analytics. And so you end up with, I don't know what data to trust. And so setting up goals, learning how to do that. On Thursday, I'm going to show right at the end, that's kind of the last part of what we'll talk about on Thursday. That just learning how to do that, or getting someone to help you to do it, because it's kind of a one-off thing, will really pay off big dividends, because that's when you'll be able to see, you know, when people have filled out a lead form, or be able to track those coupons, or those types of goals, especially if you've got e-commerce set up on your website. It's really, really important to do. And it's really valuable. It's kind of like the main, when you look at every Google Analytics report, it's got, you know, how many people converted a goal, what the conversion rate was, and then the value if it's a purchase, like how many dollars or euros or whatever. And so so setting up goals is a really important thing. And so you know, I'll show how to set up the basic ones, and then there are a lot of other resources out on the internet that will show you how to do it specifically for your organization. So I definitely recommend going that way. So like the UTM tracking, the AdWords integration, that's kind of the input, and then the goals is the, you know, have we been successful? Has our website, you know, earned its pay today? Did it do its work? So.
And I think you're right. To be able to set up the goals properly can be a little bit tricky. I've worked with a client that, you know, we spend all this time setting up goals, and then they're like, wait, we didn't make nearly that much. And they had a third-party integration for their final checkout process.
Yeah.
That tool was not set up to be able to report back into Google Analytics. So we're like, okay, well, this tool obviously is not working right, because if it's not feeding the data back into Google Analytics, then how do we actually know? So it made it really challenging. There's a lot of crappy tools out there as well.
Yeah. That's
it's interesting.
The good and bad of all the third-party tools that have shown up is that they make it easier to set up things like payment processing, or like landing pages. You know, there's all those tools that will help you build landing pages, but they're not on your website. Well, they're harder to track for the Google Analytics side of things. So you need to look at the ease of use versus can we measure it downstream. And a lot of the third-party tools are getting smart too. They know, you know, that one of the questions is, can I look at this in Google Analytics? They used to say, oh no, you can look at it in our tool here. It's like, well, if I can't tell where that person came from, how do I, you know, what good is that to me? So they're getting smarter, and they're making those integrations simpler, just like MailChimp and all the email tools make it easier to tag your emails. The third-party like landing pages and payment processors are starting to allow that, and there are techniques to do it too. So there are kind of little tricks that we've learned along the way. Google Tag Manager makes it night and day easier to do. So that tool has been really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it's evolved so much, even since I first jumped into digital marketing 12 years ago, and now it's like, oh, okay, this all makes sense now. And the fact that you can, one of my favorite features of Google Analytics is the conversion, the path, the tree. Yeah. What do you call that? I can't even remember what it's called.
Flow chart, user flow, or behavior flow.
Yeah, so you can click on, okay, here's where these people are coming from, and shows like in big broad strokes, and then how they filter down from page to page to page. It's super fascinating. And I think, you know, if you haven't really had a chance to look at Google Analytics, you can do some really basic things like compare this year to last year, or this quarter to last quarter, and then look at, you know, what your most popular pages are, maybe where your bounce rate is high, like why are people leaving that page so quickly?
Mm-hmm.
and not looking around. And then my other favorite term is pogo sticking.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where people are jumping from place to place on
Mm-hmm.
your site. And what that says is, you know, if they're coming in searching for a term and then they're jumping around your website trying to find the answer, then maybe you should provide content. You know, if you have
Mm-hmm.
enough traffic to support
Mm-hmm.
that, that would be a great idea for a blog post.
Yep. Yeah, you definitely see that, and you wouldn't know it if you didn't set up certain things. So like pogoing is going, you know, back and forth from like the home page down and back and down and back, and that it basically shows your customers can't find what they're looking for, and you can record both that behavior, but you can also, if you've got search set up on your website, you can track those keywords and see what search keywords people are using, and that'll give you, you know, an indication of you know, maybe how to change your navigation. If you're seeing a lot of pogoing, you know your navigation has to change. You know it's probably too complicated, and you've got to simplify it. And that will happen over time. If you're building a lot of content and your navigation hasn't been kept up with that content, you'll end up you know, kind of making it hard for people to find information. So adding a search to your website is just a no-brainer. That's really helpful. But looking at your navigation is really important too. And that's something with Google Analytics. If you're about to build a new website, if you're thinking about it, and you know, you have to kind of do it every few years or so, you should look at the before and after. So use Google Analytics to see what content people aren't using, and that'll help the designer, the website designer, the people developing your website think about how to improve it. Google Analytics also will tell you information about page speed, so you can look at which pages were slow, and for search engine optimization and just for good usability, you want your pages to be as fast as possible. So you can use that information to make sure, you know, you're making significant improvements when you build out your new website. And if you change the navigation in the new website, which you probably should, you can look at both the before and after in Google Analytics. So like you were saying, Suzanne, looking at, you know, how do we do this Valentine's Day versus the prior? You can look at it just from, you know, when we launched, how are we doing now? And you want to look at it right away, because if you don't, you could accidentally make mistakes and lose traffic. And so you want to make sure that you're not losing any traffic and that you're building up from where you were. I see a lot of times, especially on the search engine optimization side of the world, people will build new websites and they'll make some mistakes that are super simple to fix, but if you don't fix them right away, you'll see it in Google Analytics that you need to fix it, and then, you know, work with the good SEO team, and that they'll be able to make the changes, or better yet, plan it in advance. Do that before and after, like plan the analysis beforehand, and then have it all in place when you launch the new website.
Yeah, and what would that look like? You know, there may be a big mistake.
The biggest one that I see are when you change the names of your pages and you don't put in redirects. And so a redirect, so let's say my old website was my site / contact us, all one word. And my new website is contact us with a hyphen in between contact and us. Sounds super silly, but all your organic traffic used to go to the all one word version, and then and now it can't find that contact us page anymore. And so people are getting error pages. Google is saying your site's broken, so we're not going to show it in search anymore. And the real simple thing to do, yeah, so it's really simple to go through and make sure that that old link redirects points to the new link. It's super simple. It's literally like filling in a Google Sheet. There are plugins that can do it. There's real simple ways to do it. And if you do that in advance, you don't lose any of that traffic. And so it's real simple. And like Avi said here, you know, they saw their sales slump over 3 months. And I hate seeing it, but it makes our job super easy because we can fix it. But it's something that doesn't have to happen. So yeah, if you're starting to think about a new website, there's just some simple SEO checklists to go down, and that redirect is the topmost on the list.
And I think you can do free tools to scan those before, you know, to just double check.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of tools. There's sitemap.xml will build a sitemap for you and tell you what pages you've got and what you don't have. There's a tool, it's got the craziest name. It's called Screaming Frog, but it's one of my favorite tools. It will scan your website, and if you've got 500 or fewer pages, it's free, and it's like the Swiss Army knife of SEO. And then there are tools like Moz and Ahrefs that are, I think you have to pay for both of them, both fantastic tools if you're doing SEO. They're about 100 a month, and so they're worth it if if you've got enough traffic. I definitely would recommend one of those tools for monitoring. And then Google Search Console is free, and that will actually tell you, it has an area that will show when there are search errors, and it will actually give you a pretty good indication of how to fix those errors as well. And there's a whole range of, like, it's kind of more the SEO side of things. There are a lot of little things that Google wants to see, and Bing and Yahoo too, on your website, and it warns you if there are any errors, if it's not able to see that. Yeah.
And I want to thank everybody for coming, and thank you, Jay.
And thanks everyone for joining this podcast this morning.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jay. You're always so helpful and are such a great resource.